Hi, everyone. This is Marilyn Bradford, and I would like to welcome you to my Left Turn podcast. What is your left turn? Writing a blog, parenting in a different way, letting go of the old because you are aware of something greater. Left turns are choices we can all make. It's about a willingness to step into the unknown in any area of your life, to trust yourself, to risk creating or trying something new. It's about letting your true uniqueness shine. The greatest people who have lived, artists, statesmen, writers, explorers, musicians, have all been people willing to turn left. What capacities do you have that you have not acknowledged? What would your life and the world be like if you were willing to turn left? Hi, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Left Turn podcast. I have Tiffani Brennan with me today, an amazing Aussie. That's
Oi, oi, oi.
When people say that, and it's just Australia is such a big part of Access, and yet sometimes it seems far away, and we don't always get in touch with all the people there. So I'm delighted to have Tiffani today, not just because she's from Australia, but because she's Tiffani. She is who she is. So welcome, Tiffani.
Thank you, Marilyn. Pleasure to be here.
Tiffani is an Access Consciousness certified facilitator, and she works in all kinds of areas with Access. Translation, hosting, she oracles for Simone Milasas. She's just kind of everywhere in Access, and particularly in Access Australia, which is very cool because I think before the pandemic, we were a little bit more connected, and now we're getting connected again. And I'm very happy for that. So, Tiffani, I think everyone would love to know more about your journey. What are some of your biggest or most memorable left turns?
Yeah, I think actually it's interesting because, I know you also specialize in right recovery for you. And, I guess some of my biggest left turns would be around that sort of stuff, around addiction. And, I sort of describe myself as someone who never really had that many problems. I had a pretty good life. I have a great family. But one of the things that I did get into a lot was drugs and alcohol. And, that was really fun for me. It was a very sociable kind of a thing that I was doing. What's that?
Yeah, I mean, alcohol can be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it was fun until it wasn't fun anymore,
Exactly.
And so I became very aware of how much it was kind of destroying my life and my body. And that was really something where I started to go, okay, I have to do something different here. I have to choose something different. And, before I came across the Access tools, I was, doing meditation and yoga and already sort of on the path of kind of discovering more awareness, I would say.
Yes.
But I always had this, drug and alcohol thing going alongside of it.
Right.
And yeah, they don't generally, they can't really coexist together for too long if you want to really go down the path of awareness and consciousness. So yeah, I got to a point where I was really like, I need to make a big change. Yeah.
And how did you do that? What really helped you with that?
I think, really making some big choices, I would say, and hard choices too, I would say. And one of the things I realized was, okay, I have to basically get away from my entire social situation. I have to kind of get away from all of my friends that, I love being around and all of that sort of thing. So this opportunity came up with the business I was working in, and they were going to move me to Melbourne, to a different city within Australia. And I was like, oh, perfect. This is the perfect way to kind of change everything, stop doing what I'm doing, move away from my social circles. And then what happened was at the same time, my brother and his entire band were also moving to Melbourne, which
Oh,
I didn't know
wow.
until kind of the last moment, right? Which was great. But then the
Yeah.
other thing is they were a different circle doing the same kind of thing.
Mhm.
And my plan to move to Melbourne and live by myself and really change everything turned into the opposite of that. And it became actually, yeah, partying way harder than I ever have before. And yeah, getting sort of more into that scene than I'd been before, which was not at all the plan. Um, but then what that created was more of an intense desire for me to change it. So I created some other things in my life which didn't go so well. And as a result of those things, people around me didn't like me. And then I realized afterwards, oh, I created this whole situation so
Yeah.
that it was easier for me to again get out of it, because I'd turned people against me and all sorts of things. And I was like, okay, this is the perfect opportunity to again move away. And that's when kind of access started showing up, access consciousness started showing up in my life as well around
Mhm.
that time. um yeah, so lots of left turns, I would say, in that big left turn, because it's not just one choice. Oftentimes it's sort of making lots of different choices, making choices every day and every moment sometimes to choose
Yes.
something different.
Yes. And I
Which
appreciate that because people think it's this big thing. No, it's a whole series of choices. And that seems like exactly what you did.
mm, yeah. And in choosing that, things start to open up, opportunities, possibilities, different things start to come into your life that start to support the change that you're trying to make. And I
Hmm.
say trying because I think not for everyone, but for a lot of people who, have been addicted to drugs or alcohol or anything like that, it does become something where you have to um, yeah, just make lots of choices before it can kind of open into something that becomes easy.
So, what were some of the things that showed up to support you? Because I think that's something that people miss. Addiction is such I'm all by myself in this whatever, even though we may be partying a lot. It it has a sense often of where we're all alone with our drug of choice, whatever that is.
Mm,
So, what was, but they miss the point that when you really choose something different, things show up to support you.
mm.
So, what were some of the things that showed up to support you?
Um, Look, I mean, for me, access consciousness was the main thing.
Well, that's
Um,
huge. Yes, I get that.
yeah, yeah. I guess I was already doing things to try and support myself out of it, so I kind of had that. It was things like meditation, things like already having developed, I would say, a connection with my body,
Mhm.
um, and a communication with my body, which was part
Wow.
of me realizing I had to stop doing what I was doing because my body was screaming at me. And
Yeah.
I really had an awareness of the future I was creating with my life and with my body,
Mhm.
if I kept going on that path. Um, and it's not a future that I wanted to have. I was
Yeah.
like, I can see where this is going, and I don't want to have that as my future. So, different people started to show up. Um, but yeah, I would say access was one of the biggest things. I mean, I just really dived very deep into it pretty much as soon as I came across it, because it was I was in this meditation actually at one point, and I realized, that the heights that I love to get to through partying and through drugs and stuff like that, I know I can reach these heights in a different way. And I know I can reach them in a way that means there's no, highs and then
Go
lows
down.
so
Right.
much.
You don't have to
You know,
crash. Yeah, I know that one.
exactly. So yeah, you have these highs, but it's almost like this artificial kind of high that mimics in a way the heights that I knew I could get to as a person or as a being, which was kind of what I think I was searching for
Yeah.
through, drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. And I think it does give you a bit of a sense of what's possible for you as a being, but you can't maintain it,
No,
with drugs and
it
alcohol. So it gives
drowns
you a
out this
little,
reality. It kind of drowns out
yeah,
all insanity for a brief time, and then you crash,
yes.
and that's not fun.
No, not at all. Not at
But I,
all.
I think it is something that a lot of humanoids choose just because they don't know anything different. They don't know there's a possibility beyond that. So, but that's very cool because it seems like your choices just kept leading you and creating more for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm very grateful for that. Yeah.
Me too. Me too.
Ah,
And I think there'll be a lot
mm.
of people who hear this who will be, oh, well, okay. So I know that you are a mom and I think a wife, and I never know about how these things actually look. But was that all a left turn for you?
Becoming a mum?
Yeah.
Ah, gosh. I don't know. I don't think, I mean, I love when we were talking before we started recording this podcast, and I love one of the things that you were saying about the left turn thing being somewhere where you kind of, everything wants you to go right, but
Mhm.
you have to go a different way. And I don't think becoming a mother and that sort of thing was that for me.
Okay.
Um, it was more all of the things of, I would say, choosing a life with more awareness in it for me was really the thing where almost everything and everyone around me was going, well, why are you choosing this? Like, I remember
Oh,
I remember my dad
oh,
saying to me at one point, what's wrong with you? Like,
really?
you must be hiding something that's wrong with you because you seem like a pretty together person. Why is it that you have to do all this stuff that you're doing? And I remember saying to him, well, it's not that there's something wrong with me. I just want to be better, better and better and better and better all the time,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah, a lot of people kind of going, why are you doing that? What's, the things that you look at and the things that you talk about are very odd. Can't you just be normal? Please, just be normal.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. That they would go, the greater your awareness, the what's wrong with you for being aware. That's that's interesting. Yeah. How did you handle that?
Uh, well, probably by doing this a little bit, you know,
Mhm.
um, going in and out of being committed to what I am choosing and what I know works for me, and then, kind of dipping back into, well, maybe I should just try and be normal and fit in, um and all of that. And I think that's kind of a little bit, I mean, less and less so, but a little bit of an ongoing thing, I would say too.
I think it's ongoing for all of us. There's such a pull by this reality and such a, we're just projected onto, and it's just like, why don't you do this? If you don't like, well, for us in America, if you don't like Trump, then resist and react. There's such a get involved in this reality, right and wrong, good and bad way, rather than what if you're just aware? What if you're just interesting point of view?
Yeah.
I think an interesting point of
Yeah.
view.
It's a
Shocking.
very, what's that?
I think being interesting point of view really shocks and kind of upsets people.
Yeah. Yeah. People don't know what to do with that.
Right, exactly.
And you become very strange to some people. So it's kind of like the willingness to be strange and the willingness to be perceived as different,
Yeah.
and have people not get you, and that sort of thing, which I think when you really have that allowance for you
Yeah.
to be whatever you show up as with whatever you're choosing, then it becomes far less relevant what other people need of you and how they need you to be and show up and react or not react, and that sort of thing too, which is, yeah, it's an interesting and fun journey, I would say.
Yeah, it is. Both of those things. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you think I'm an
Yeah.
idiot. Okay, how does it get better than that? It's kind of like
Yes.
that. And then you just keep choosing what works for you.
Yeah.
Can you think of, or are you aware of any other left turns that have had a big impact on you in your life?
Gosh. Yeah. I mean, not that I can think of really. I mean, in a way, it's kind of like making left turns on a regular basis too. I
Yes,
think,
yes.
yes.
Kind of an ongoing flowing
um,
left turn rather than a boink and a boink and a boink.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes, yes, exactly. And I think, at least for me on this journey of, I would say awareness and consciousness, there are big choices sometimes that you really need to make. It's almost like you need to keep jumping off cliffs. You
yes,
kind of need to keep jumping into the unknown,
yes,
if you want your expansion to continue. Um, and yeah, I think that's the thing that I probably, it's great having this conversation with you because it makes me realize, wow, I have to keep doing these left turns.
yes,
Like what other left turns can I be making, and should I be making, that's going to continue, the growth and the expansion that is so enjoyable for me, but
yes,
sometimes feels really hard.
yes, it does. I had a real reentry not problem, but a real reentry thing when I got back from the ranch from the Home of Infinite Possibilities class. It was like, because I was different and this reality was even more this reality. And I appreciate you
Yeah.
saying that, Tiffani, because some people are like, well, shouldn't it all be light and easy? And yeah, and sometimes it's really intense and you just have to be there with it. Okay, well, what am I choosing? And, what does matter to me? And, all of those things. So, um,
Mm.
yeah.
And so, I mean, can you talk a little bit more about what happened when you got back? Like what?
Well, this is an
Yeah.
interesting. I was listening to a class with Dan. I listen to classes every night, and I'm not even sure which class it was. But Dane was talking about how sometimes people go to El Lugar, which is this amazing resort that accesses in the middle of building. It's open, you can go, but it's not quite finished yet. But he was talking about how sometimes people leave El Lugar and go, quote, home, and they're traumatized. because the contrast between the peace and the space and the consciousness and the earth of El Lugar, and then their quote life it's so huge. It's just like being ripped out of something. And I didn't experience it to that extent, but I did experience a few days of that. It's like, what? WTF? Because I had such a sense of peace and space at the ranch, just and connection with the earth. And I went horseback riding, and then I got back, and it's not that anything's wrong. I have a lovely home, blah, 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 blah. And it's all about this reality and finances and Trump and, ouch. It was a big ouch. I guess that's the best way to put it. And then I had to go, well, what am I choosing? And here's the thing. And I don't, probably both Gary and Dana said this, but if you've been a space of peace and expansion and joy and gratitude, even if you go, you can always call that up. It's part of you now. And that's been very helpful to me. Just, and I know you went, and once again, I don't know why I have trouble saying it, but I know you went to Uluru. Is that what it is? How you pronounce it?
Uluru, yes.
Uluru.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. What did that change for you?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, hearing you talk about El Lugar and the peace and the space, and it's very much the same at Uluru, the space and the peace and the aliveness of the land, which is kind of everywhere, but there's something, with places like that where they really pull you into the space that's available, which then you start to go, oh my God, this feels so much more like me. This is so relaxing. This is so peaceful. This is so everything that I'd like to have as often as possible. But then the other thing in Uluru is the rock itself. And I mean, that rock is, I mean, you really have to kind of, hearing you say you can tap in and you absolutely can tap into anything. We all know these places, and we all have the ability to, communicate with them, I think, and ask them to show themselves to us and gift us with what they're inviting us to. But actually being there and seeing it and touching it, and there's a power and a potency also, mixed with this space and peace and ease and just expansion into something that's so undefined, but so familiar, and so beautiful. That is just like, as soon as I was there and we kind of finished up with that amazing class, being the source at Uluru, I was sort of like, oh, I need to come back here it's kind of as soon as possible, just to have that again. But yeah, I love that, Marilyn, that, because it is true. If you've experienced that, you can really choose to be that in any moment. And I think, the more and more that, for those of us who use the Access Consciousness tools or any other tools that kind of contribute more awareness and consciousness to our worlds and bodies, that you do become more aware of everything around you. So if you live in a place where there's a lot of people, for example, you're going to be aware of those people. And I think that's one of the things that the Access Consciousness tools helped me so much with, and even with the drug and alcohol thing as well. It really, the tools can really change. And just a little segue back to the drugs and alcohol thing, they really changed for me the pathways I felt like in my brain, that kept me in that circle, of addiction. And those pathways just started to sort of dissolve, and then the need to do what I was doing before started to fall away in a way that was so much easier than anything else I'd tried. But it's the same with, awareness and being aware of people and energies around you. You start to become more aware of what is more like you and what's not you,
Yeah.
and then what you'd like to choose and be. And that is a choice in every moment, really, that we have. Okay, so I've been to Uluru, I've been to Elugar, it might just be the beach for you, or looking out at the expanse of the ocean and having that sense of like, oh, I feel so much more like me, or I'd like to
Yeah.
feel more like this every day, then we can just choose it,
Yeah.
tap into that energy and be that.
I love what you said about the tools of access. And it's like the addiction stuff just kind of falls away. It's not, oh, we have to fight it and we have to do these steps. And I'm not saying that's wrong. That's right for some people. But really using the tools of access consciousness, it's like, oh, what happened? I don't have that anymore. That just, it's like shedding a skin or something, or all of a sudden we're on a different path and it's not difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, awareness and willingness to change and like make the kinds of choices you made. There's no space for the addiction. There's no,
Yeah.
yeah, it just kind of doesn't, it doesn't have anything to grab onto.
No, no. And I think also, what was really helpful too was being surrounded by other people who are also choosing,
Yeah.
um, what they're choosing to kind of support themselves more, I'd say, in having a greater life, a life of more ease, a life of more joy, whatever that is for each person. That's supportive too. Having people around that are choosing more of that just kind of, yeah, supports you along that journey to being and having more of that, whatever that is for you, that creates more joy and lightness and space, if that's fun for you in your world.
Yeah, absolutely. More joy, more lightness, and some more space. Well, thank you very much, Tiffani. This was a really great, empowering conversation, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's lovely chatting, and I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining this episode of Left Turn. I wonder what embracing left turns could create in your life. What magical possibilities might show up. Remember, when you choose left turns, you are joining a group of the most creative and brilliant people the world has ever known.